Okay, so we've come now to the part of the course where we talk about hovers and how they are used in Divi 5. I know some of you may not really feel like there's a need to add hover systems or hover options onto our designs, but I'll show you anyway in case you may want to use it. All right, so let's start off by adding a hover on this whole section over here. So to add a hover action, you click here on the actual item that you want to add the hover to. And then over here on the top right, you see that there's a little drop down. It's not very apparent, but if you click this, you'll notice that you have tablet, phone, and most importantly, hover. So if you click on hover, now we're in hover mode, which means whatever change we're going to be doing here is going to be the state of the hover. Okay, so we're going to do something very, very basic. Okay, we're going to add a background color. So making sure it's selected, and you can see here we have this little arrow here. This is what notifies us that that is a hover action. So now we can go to our background and add a background color. So let's say we're going to go very dark. Okay, like that. We're going to close out of that. Hit save, and then we need to come back over here and get out of the hover mode by clicking on desktop. So at the moment it looks like nothing has happened, okay, and the hover won't work because I'm in the actual builder mode. Okay, so I would need to go into this option where I can do a quick preview, and in fact, let's get rid of this as well. Right. Okay. So now this is a preview. If I hover over the section, notice what happens. You see that? So that is how the hover actually works. But it doesn't really work on sections alone. It works on pretty much anything. So let's try it out. So over here, I'm going to go back in. Now, if you want to make any changes to this, you'd come back over here, make sure you're in hover mode, and then you delete the color. Okay. And then you go back into your normal mode. Now, what I found quite tricky here is if you're in hover mode and you're doing a lot of changes, sometimes you may forget that you're still in hover mode, and that will mess things up. So you really need to pay attention when you use the hover mode. Okay. So let's do the hover mode on this row, just to show you that it can be done pretty much on different items. So on this row, it's selected. Again, you come over here, you go into hover mode. And let's say for this row, we want it to grow. Okay, we want it to just zoom out. So what we do now is we come over here. In fact, let's add a background color as well. Okay, so we're going to go in, add a background color. Okay, so that's on hover mode. And I also want to maybe add a zoom effect. So you're going to come over here and actually it's on design, transform. And let's say we increase this up to 105 and hit save. Now, if I come over here and refresh, notice what happens. Over here, when I hover over here, nothing happens. But as soon as I come here, did you see that? Isn't that cool? So these are subtle things that you can add to your design. These hover effects, they work on sections, they work on rows, they work on groups, they work on modules. Pretty much you can use them everywhere. Okay, you can even add the hover effect on the button if you want, just to show people that there's some sort of interaction there. Again, if you want to get rid of it, you'd come over here, get rid of that, go to the background color and delete that. Okay, so that is how you use your hover effects. You can use it on a blurb like this, and the hover is so versatile because you can see here I'm in hover mode. While I'm here, I can say, okay, you know what, that hover needs just to add a border. Okay, so I'll come over here and choose my border like that, and that's my hover. I'm going to save that, get out of hover mode. I'll come over here, refresh, And now let me show you what happens. See, nothing is happening here, nothing is happening here, and boom. Look at that. So that is how you use the hover mode in Divi 5. Sometimes when you design, you want to show a bit of emphasis by using animations. So in this video, I want to show you how to apply animations to our designs. All right, so we're going to start off with this module. Okay, this is a blurb. So to find our animations, we can come over here to the design tab, and you'll notice that we have animation over here. Okay, so there's quite a few animations, as you can see here. By default, we're on none, but we can fade. Did you see that fade? Okay, I'll go back to none. So we can fade like that. We can slide. We can bounce. Okay, sometimes I like that when it's a call to action and someone needs to log in. I like using the bounce. So just to test them, you can just, go back and forth. There's also a zoom. We have a flip. We have a fold. And we also have a roll. Now, this one here, I'm not the favorite. I don't like it at all. It's too gimmicky. Now, there's also some options here. The animation direction, okay? At the moment, it's set to center, but you can set it to the bottom like that. And that looks ridiculous, by the way. We can fade, slide, but you can see now the slide has changed from top to bottom, okay? And, the bounce is bouncing from the top, and then it comes to the bottom as well. Same applies with the zoom. It's coming from the top, going towards the bottom. So you need to play around with these until you're happy with how it actually works. By default, it's on center, and that's why I prefer it. Now, we also have the animation duration here. Right now, it's on 1 second, but of course, you can change it, speed it up. Now, the smaller the number, the faster it's going to happen. Do you see that? It's pretty much too fast, and you can slow it down maybe to 2 seconds like that, and look at the fade. It's now slower, the slide, the bounce, and we also have the animation delay here as well. So these are the sort of things you can tweak if you want to play around with them, see how it works. Now we also have further adjustments here, so you can go in, we can ease out, we can say auto. Now, do you see that? Or we can ease in out like that. Now that's, it's a bit slow because it's on 2 seconds, but usually this 1000, which is 1000 milliseconds, I think it's 1 second. So this is where I normally leave it at. And over here, you can also set the repeat. Right now it's happening once, but you can loop it. But of course, I don't know why you'd want to have that. So once you're done, you hit save. Now, what's really cool as well is if you want to keep this animation, you can actually save it as a preset. Okay, so this is where the presets come in. Do you see that? It's looped, so it keeps looping over and over again. Now, I would say this is not a good use of the animation right now. Ideally, you want to loop it once. To play it once, and that's it, like that, and then just leave it. Now, if this is something that you like, you can create a preset of this by coming over here. You create a preset, and then you give it a name, and you can use this, over and over again, whenever you want to use this animation. So as you can see, there's quite a few animations here. I'll go back to design, animation. Yes, there's quite a few, and there's also a few items here that you can go in and customize. Now, the animations do not only work on modules, they also work on rows. So you can make the whole row. For example, here, you go to design, and you can see animation is there. You can make the whole row bounce if you want to. It's pretty much up to you. You can also make a whole group bounce as well if you want to do that. So it's very, very flexible, but the rule of thumb is if you're going to be using animations, use them in a very subtle way. That is the most elegant way that you can have these animations look really nice and professional. If you exaggerate them, it just makes the website look very, very basic and amateurish. All right, go ahead and try the animations in Divi 5. All right, in the next few lessons, we're going to be talking about scroll effects and how they can enhance your website. All right, so to get your scroll effects, you need to choose the elements that you need to apply the scroll effect to. So for example, let's say I want to apply the scroll effect to this particular section. I make sure I click on the gear icon or just the whole section in general, okay? Next, you want to come over here to advanced, and then you come all the way down here to scroll effects. So there's quite a few. As you can see here, there's do not stick, which is the default. But as soon as you click here, you'll see there's stick to the top, stick to the bottom, and stick to top and bottom. Now, in most cases, you will not need to use the stick to the top and bottom. You're going to pretty much stick to the top is going to be the main one. Okay, so let's click on stick to the top. Now I've applied this effect to this particular section here. So I want you to notice what happens. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to come over here to my review tab and refresh this page. Now what's going to happen to this section here is when I start scrolling, it's going to stick to the top like that, and then everything else on the bottom here is going to follow through like that. You see that? Okay, now this may not be an ideal way of having the website because it makes it very difficult for people to read what is on the bottom here because, you know, the whole section is stuck at the top. But this is just to illustrate that this actually works. Okay, so now let's move on and let's have another example. Now I want to remove this stick to the top. Let's just remove that. Next, we're going to use stick to the top on this group. Okay, so you notice I've clicked here on the group settings. We're going to come over here to advanced, and then we're going to go to scroll effects. Okay, now with this, again, I'm going to say scroll to the top. I mean, stick to the top. Okay, with stick to the top, same thing. I'm going to save, and then over here, if I refresh, you're going to notice that everything is going to work. That's going to stick, but look at my image here. It's still going. Everything else is going except for that item at the top. You see that? Right. So that in itself is not really a good way of having something to stick on the top, especially if it's something very important. So ideally what you want to do if you're going to be doing this is to give it a color and a background. Okay. So this whole thing here needs to have a color. So I'm going to use my framework here just so that I can do this quickly. So I'm going to say BG gray, let's say 200. Okay. Or let's say gray 300. Okay. So at least we can see what we're working with here. So if that's something very important and you wanted to stick there on the screen as you're scrolling, let's save this and refresh, and then you'll notice that it's got a much better experience when you scroll. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start scrolling. Now, do you see that? It is now stuck to the top. But as everything else is going through, it is not showing through because I have a background color. Now, of course, this is not the best way. I wouldn't say this is an elegant design per se, but adding that background is a good way of making sure that nothing in the background is actually showing. Now, there's also another way that we can apply this, and let's first of all remove this background color. All right, so going back to my group settings, we can actually say on the advanced tab, scroll effects, we could say bottom sticky limit. Okay, right now it's set to none, but I can set it so that it's happening in the section. Okay, now this here is not a very good example, so let's just get rid of this so I can show you this on another item. So let's say I want this to be my sticky effect. Okay, I'm going to select that. I'm going to come over here, go to scroll effects. I'm going to say stick to the top. Hopefully I've got enough space for me to stick to the top. Yes, it's working. Okay, great. So I can stick to the top, but this time I want this to, the limit to be in the actual section. Boom. Okay, now let's save. Now you're going to see a much better experience with this. So I'm going to come over here and refresh. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to start scrolling. Now notice what happens when I get to those items. They're going to stick for a moment. Boom. Do you see that? It's now stuck. But as soon as that section catches up, it goes away. Okay. Now there are so many creative ways of of using this. So you can see again, we're in the section here. Boom, it sticks, and then it goes up because it's within the section itself. So that's another way of using this. So you may be asking, why would you use this feature? Well, let's say you have a page which has a product that you want to, pretty much show for the most part of the scrolling experience on the page. You can have everything scroll, but have the product on there visible as the person is scrolling. Another option would be, maybe this is an opt-in form and you want the opt-in form to stay visible as you're scrolling. I mean, that would work as well. And another case could be, perhaps it's very important information that you want to showcase on there as you're scrolling, and therefore it needs to stay up there. So there are several ways that you may want to use this feature, and it is fantastic. Now, finally, let's just go back in here, and this time I'm just going to remove this scroll effects. Okay, and this time around, we're going to look for something that we want to stick to the bottom. So let's say this one right here, this whole section. We're going to come over here to advanced, scroll effects, and this time we're going to say stick to bottom. Okay, we're going to save. Now we're going to refresh, and then we're going to start scrolling. Now, do you see that it's stuck at the bottom? Now everything else is coming from under it and going above, and then it continues. So this is not a very good, experience that you may want to do to apply to this, but this could work creatively on different applications of of this. But like I said, I don't usually use, or in fact, I've never found a reason why I would want to stick anything to the bottom, unless maybe there is something above the footer that is very important that needs to stay visible. But apart from that, there's no reason for me to actually use that. All right, so see you again in the next video.